Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. And we are on verse 29, text 29, Canto 2, Chapter 6. It's May 22nd, 2020. Okay, so text 29. Tata te pratara ime prajanam pataya nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahita tataste bratara ime prajanam patayo nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahita tataste bratara ime prajanam patayo nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahita tataste bratara ime prajanam patayo nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahita
Tataste bratara ime
prajanam patayo nava
ayajan
vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahita.
Interesting word. Bharat is just like in Russian, brothers.
Brother. Yeah. Also English. We see the same root.
Brother, right?
Same root in English. Yeah.
Brat. It's like exactly more. Tataste bratara ime.
Tataste bratara ime.
Prajanam patayo nava.
Prajanam patayo nava.
Ayajam vyaktam avyaktam.
Ayajan vyaktam avyaktam.
Purusham susamahita.
Purusham susamahita. Would anyone else like to chant the verse?
Tataste bratara ime Prajanam patayo nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahitah
Tataste bratara ime patayo nava ayajam vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahitah.
Tataste Bhautavaime
Tataste Bhrataraime
Janam Bhatayo Nava
Rajanam Patayo Nava
Ayam Jam Bhaktamavyaktam
Ayajan Vyaktamavyaktam
Purusham Susamaitaha
Urusham Susamahitaha.
We'll go to the word for word. Tata,
Tata.
thereafter.
Thereafter.
Te,
Te.
your.
Your.
Ratara,
Brother.
brothers.
Brothers.
Ime, these.
These.
Prajanam,
Prajanam.
of the living creatures.
Of the living creatures.
Hataya,
Tata.
masters.
Masters.
Nava,
Nava.
9.
Nine.
Ayajan,
Ayajan.
performed.
Perform.
Vyaktam,
Yaktam.
manifested.
Manifest.
Avyaktam,
Avyaktam.
non-manifested.
Non-manifested.
Purusham,
Purusham.
personalities.
Personalities.
Susamahita,
Susamahita.
with proper rituals.
With proper rituals.
Translation. My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. This is Lord Brahma speaking to his son and disciple Narada Muni, and speaking about Narada Muni's 9 brothers. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.E.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The manifested personalities are the demigods, like the ruler of the heavenly kingdom, Indra, and his associates, and the non-manifested personality is the Lord himself. The manifested personalities are mundane controllers of the material affairs, whereas the non-manifested personality of Godhead is transcendental beyond the range of the material atmosphere. In this age of Kali, the manifested demigods are also not to be seen, for space travel has completely stopped. So both the powerful demigods and the supreme personality of Godhead are non-manifested to the covered eyes of the modern man. Modern men want to see everything with their eyes, although they are not sufficiently qualified. Consequently, they disbelieve in the existence of the demigods or of the supreme God. They should see through the pages of authentic scriptures and should not simply believe their unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes, tinged with the ointment of love of God. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganalalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha. Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishkanvitam Jaya. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Hari Pre Vanchakalpati Vyascha Sindhu Bheva Chapatitanan Pavane Vyo Vaishnave Vyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini Vainam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Devottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Utamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Text 29, Chapter 6, Canto 2 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tataste Bratara Ime Prajanam Pateo Nava Ayajan Vyaktam Avyaktam Purusham Susamahita. My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Okay, so manifested, non-manifested, and so Prabhupada's making the point that, well, also the demigods are unmanifested. So also we are unmanifested. We are unmanifested. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, avyakto yam achintyo yam adhikaryo yam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. So the first, Krishna is describing the qualities of the soul. And the first quality he mentions in that verse is avyakta, which means the same word is used here, avyakta. Unmanifested. So we are unmanifested, right? Because I'm not seeing the soul. Right? I'm seeing the body. I'm thinking, you're that body, I'm this body. And so the actual self, the actual spirit soul is unmanifested. And what to speak of the demigods or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so manifested or unmanifested, these are relative principles. Okay? So let's say for Srimad Bhagavatam, or Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, or Shukadeva Goswami, Goswami, the soul's not unmanifested. Okay, so this whole process of Srimad Bhagavatam, this whole process of Bhakti Yoga, it's about transforming that which is avyakta, that which is not manifested, to that which is manifested, and it's a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of consciousness. So Prabhupada makes the point epistemologically, as far as the way to know knowledge, the way to know experience, the way to know that more and more as the ages go on, seeing is overrated. Seeing as far as through these gelatinous organs called the eyes. Prabhupada makes the point. It's not the eyes that see. The eyes are a dead machine, just like, okay, one could construct a computer. I'm sure this wouldn't even be so sophisticated in the modern day. One could construct a machine, and that when, something that we call that red cushion were in front of it, the machine would say, I see red, or something like that. Okay, but is the machine actually seeing red? No, because there's no consciousness inside. Right? So the machine's not hearing or seeing. It's actually the spirit soul that sees, that hears, that smells, that tastes. It's actually spirit soul. Because the spirit soul has senses, just like the Supreme Absolute is sentient. Thou hast proved impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. That's a verse from a poem that Prabhupada wrote to his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta said, this Abhay Charanaravinda has deeply understood my mission. Bhaktisiddhanta could see just from that, one line in a poem. Absolute senses. So spirit has senses. The ground of reality is personal. Personal means sentient, senses. So it's a spirit soul that sees. And right now in conditioned life, we're seeing through the filters of the material mind and the material body, the material senses. The example Prabhupada often gives, just like, our clothes have a particular form, right? There's some sleeves and there's the legs and the pants. Our clothes have a particular form. Why? Because our body has a particular form. We can understand something about the form of the body from the form of the clothes. It's a covering. Okay. And so similarly, the body has a particular form because it's encasing the soul, which has that form in its pure form. right? So the body has eyes and hands and legs because the soul has spiritual eyes, hands, legs. And so again, Atashri Krishna Namani Namba Vedgrai Mindra Seva Nukehi Jivda Svayam Eva Spiratyada. That with material senses, anything spirit, or even not just spirit, but even subtle matter like the demigods are going to be unmanifest, avyakta. And then through this process of, well, starting with the tongue, Sivan Mukihi Jivadel Svayameva Spratyada, then we transform material senses and we uncover and reveal our spiritual senses. And then that which was subtle material and spirit, our own selves, Krishna, the name, form, qualities, pastimes of God become manifest. They become manifest. And so right now it's just like, right now we're in conditioned life, in conditioned material life, to the extent that we're in conditioned material life, which is practically every spirit soul in the material universe. In conditioned material life, it's kind of like we're seeing, we're tasting, we're hearing, and it's like a dull. It's very dull. Just like, again, let's say, analogously, okay, so with my bare fingers, I can pick up a dime. And then let's say, if it's covered with a thin mitten, okay, maybe I could pick up a quarter, but it's not as fine. And then let's say if it's covered with a thick winter glove, okay, then you can still get the idea. There's a hand there, got some fingers, you can't do too much. Let's say that's a mitten, then let's say that's covered with a hockey glove. Okay, can't do much with that, So similarly, this is like the body is this. There's gross matter and subtle matter covering the original spiritual senses of the soul, and that's where life is. That's the conscious entity. So even materially, most everything we learn is not by seeing, and this is an important point because sometimes, you believe in God? Can you show me God? Krishna. So, a point we often make, Prabhupada often makes, okay, just like, because the false contrived philosophy is something like, I only believe what I can see, I'm a man of rationality. Okay, so we say, have you ever seen an atom? Well, of course not. Do you believe that atoms exist? Well, of course. Why? Because I've read a book. In junior high school, I had a teacher who I trust. So we learn by hearing. Do you believe that Tibet exists? Oh yeah, of course. Oh, so you've seen Tibet? No. But you said you only believe what you can see. So we just want to learn how to expose the fallacies of such ridiculous statements. Do you believe in radio waves? No. Okay. So but we hear. So even materially, most of our knowledge comes from hearing. And so unmanifest, just like, okay, let's say if it's a cloudy day, we can say the sun is unmanifest, okay? But the sun's not affected by the cloud. So the cloud represents Maya, the cloud of darkness, the cloud of Maya, okay? But if let's say if we're in an airplane and we're above the clouds, then the sun's completely manifest. So this process of bhakti yoga, it's about moving our consciousness above the clouds of Maya, and then that which was unmanifest becomes manifest. Even to take that analogy further, so you have to think, the sun's covered, the clouds are covering the sun. It's kind of a ridiculous conception. The sun is this, vast stellar body, whatever, 1 million times the diameter of the earth or something, and the clouds are just these wisps of, insubstantial air coalescing, with some water. But because we are tiny, then from our perception, the sun's not manifest because of the clouds, but the clouds aren't covering the sun. The clouds are covering our eyes. Maya covers us. And just as Krishna Swayasama, Maya Andhakar, Krishna is metaphorically the sun, Maya is clouds, darkness. And so, relatedly, Krishna is the creator of Maya. He says, Devi Esha Guna Maya, Mama Maya Durakaya, Mameva Ye Prapadyante, Mayam Etam Tarantite. Krishna says that, on our own efforts, without connecting through bhakti to Krishna, that it's practically impossible to overcome the force of Maya. And Krishna says, but one who surrenders unto me, Mamevaya Prapadyante, Mayam Etam Tarantite, one who surrenders to me can easily cross beyond Maya, because it's Mama Maya. Deviation, Mama Maya. It's my Maya. Krishna creates Maya, just as the clouds are created by the sun, right? Through the process of evaporation of the ocean waters. Right? The sun creates the clouds. Clouds are not the enemy of the sun, right? The sun creates the clouds through a particular process. So, okay, and even in terms of the demigods, that's mythical fantasy, that sort of thing. Like, any smart, educated person knows that's like Greek mythology or Indian mythology. But why should we accept that? Let's look at it rationally, right? Just to have some light or to have some running water. Okay, we know that there's intelligent persons behind that, right? There's at the electric company, there's an engineer, and at the water company. So just to have so the sun has, right, innumerable trillions of times more power than this light bulb in my house or your house. So rationally, it makes sense that there would be a person with trillions of times more intelligence behind the sun's illumination than behind the electric company that produces the 75 watts. That's just rational. So we don't want to blindly accept, all smart people know that this is all mythology. Why? Why just surrender into the stampede of the herd of independent thinkers? Let's actually think for ourselves. So, okay, so whether you're talking about demigods or Krishna, there's a process, right? So there's a process. Can you show me God? Yeah. Yes, we can. And there's a process. Are you willing to follow the process? Why should there be a process? Just even let's say if we wanted to meet in person. It's hard to do anything in person these days, but you get the idea. Let's say we want to meet the governor of Florida, just some ordinary politician, administrator on this planet, the president of the United States. We wanted to meet the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, right? Is it like, well, if the governor of Florida really exists, let him appear before me right now. What? No, there's a process. No, he exists, and you can see him, and I can see him. There's a process. You approach his secretary. You write a letter about why you want half hour of his time. And maybe you go through the secretary of the secretary. And there's a process, right? Even to see someone in this world. And so similarly, to transform the unmanifest to the manifest, starting with ourselves. Again, we are unmanifest. We're the spirit soul. How much are we manifesting that in our life? Okay, so then there's a process. There's many processes, and all the processes lead to bhakti. All the processes, jnana yoga, karma yoga, yad roshi yad asnasi yad juhoshi dadasya yad tapasya sikante tat pushva madarpanam. And karma yoga means we engage our body and our senses, and ultimately to use them in bhakti. Jnana yoga culminates in bhakti. All the yogas, hatha yoga, yoga, that sort of physical exercises. It's there in the Vedas, and it culminates in bhakti. Okay, and so there's a process. If we want to actually, like Prabhupada gives the example, and I think he directly quotes that from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Just like if there's a jar of honey, we can speculate on what the honey tastes like, but and that's like a form of jnana. I think it tastes like this, or we can open the jar of honey. So opening the jar of honey, that's this process of bhakti, right? To get to know an entity, a conscious entity superior to us. The process is we serve with love and devotion. We serve in love and devotion, and then that higher powered entity personally reveals himself to us. And then the unmanifest becomes manifest, and the unmanifest becomes manifest. So how willing are we to engage in the process for God to be manifest in our life, for our own spiritual selves to be manifest in our life? There is a process. That's very encouraging. How willing are we to engage in the process? Simple examples. Okay, let's say if in my home, let's say it's the middle of the day, I'm in my home with the lights out and the shades down, maybe I have extra shades or whatever, and I can say, there is no sun, like that. You go, no, there's the sun. The sun exists. No, I only see darkness. I don't see anything. There's only darkness. There's no sun. Well, David Wolf, there's a process. Find your way to the front door, turn the doorknob, and go outside. And there's the sun there. No, there's only darkness. Okay, so it's just like, it's up to me. How willing am I to do the process? How willing am I to give myself to the process of bhakti? To have a direct, not a filtered experience, like through the gelatinous eyes or the material senses, but to have a direct experience. Krishna says, Rajavidya Rajhuyam Parichamidamuttamam Prajakshavagamam Damyam Shushukam Kortumavya. Krishna says this process is directly experienced. Means the nature of the soul. The soul has senses, and the nature of the soul is to directly, not in a filter, not through the mediated filters of material mind and senses, but for the soul to have a direct experience of itself and of Krishna. And Krishna says that's the actual perfection of religion. So am I willing to open the door, go outside and see for myself if there's really a sun? Another simple example, someone could say 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen makes water. So I can be cynical, skeptical. No, that's just fantasy. That's just your dogma. That's your blind belief. No, it's not blind belief. It's actually rational. Here's the chemical algebraic equation. But you don't need to accept what I say. You can go into the laboratory and mix the hydrogen and oxygen. See if you get the same results of so many sincere chemists over the ages. Similarly, bhakti means, like Krishna says, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. And Krishna says, for one who's sincere, I give the intelligence by which they can come to me. So our primary job is to be simple, not simplistic, simple and sincere. And then Krishna gives us the intelligence how to make the distinctions to actually progress in transforming the unmanifested to the manifested. And so simple and sincere means, I'm thinking of the the famous George Harrison song, which we play during seminars sometimes. My sweet Lord, because I really want to know you. I really want to feel you. I really want to know you, Lord, like that. So do we really want to know God? Do we really want to know Krishna? And so sincerity means, okay, I'm sincere as an individual to dovetail, to align my desires with Krishna's desires, to align my desires with Krishna's desires, without a separatist agenda. That is not about squelching or stifling our personality. When I align my desires with Krishna's desires, then my spiritual personality blossoms and manifests. So that's sincerity. I really want to give up my separatist agenda born of rajas and tamas and sincerely serve Krishna. And then with that sincerity, Prabhupada here towards the end of the purport, he's referring to a verse from the Brahma Samhita that Prabhupada says, they should see through the pages of authentic scriptures and should not simply believe their unqualified eyes. Even in these days, God can also be seen by qualified eyes tinged with the ointment of love of God. So Prabhupada's encouraging us to see through Shastra Chakshush, to see through the eyes of knowledge. Simple example again, a small child might see the sun as a disc in the sky 3 inches in diameter, but seeing through the eyes of knowledge, we don't see a disc 3 inches in diameter. We see this enormous stellar body. So we see through the eyes of transcendental knowledge. Similarly, we train ourselves to see and hear and smell and taste and feel through the eyes of Shastra, the eyes of knowledge. And then gradually, for most it's a gradual process, then we have more and more direct experience of that which is unmanifested to the material consciousness. And Prabhupada references the verse from Brahma Samhita, Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena Shanta sadaiva vidayeshu vilokayanti Yam shama sundaram achintya gunasvarupam Govinda maripusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Krishna, who is Shama Sundar, Krishna himself, possessing innumerable transcendental attributes, and who the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eyes of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. So this verse, and the purport, it's a lot about seeing, and what is in a sense the illusion of seeing. Pashanapi na pashyati, Bhagavatam verse describes that they see but they don't see. Like we see everyone's subjected to death, but we're living as if we're going to live forever. We're seeing the inherent miseries of being stuck in a body of birth, death, old age, and disease. And like lemmings off a cliff, we're still just following the materialistic way. Seeing but not really seeing. Even I'm thinking of different books and literatures. This verse is Canto 2, Chapter 6, text 29. Literatures I read in my teenage years, like that. The concepts were there. There's a Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. And the idea is beings from Mars, he used this term to grok, which means it's not about physical seeing, but it's like to really realize and experience and connect and see. Remember, I read some literatures by an author called Carlos Castaneda about the shamans in Mexico.
Yeah,
You read Carlos Castaneda? But we're not focusing on that here. So, and the idea was that he would use the word seeing in quotes. He would use the word seeing in quotes, right? Under the influence of whatever, then the shamans would really see, and they would see. So it's the same principle, okay? We're not saying that those books are parampara, but we can take some principle there. So similarly, what's the verse? Om Ganatim Nirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitamya Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Right? So I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, offering respectful obeisances unto him. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham evanokam vartam aham aganatam jamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto gyanadipena bhasvata. Krishna says, I, dwelling within their hearts, that's us, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance. So this is real seeing. Chakudan dilo ye janme janme prabhu say divyagan ride prokashito. He fills our heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. Speaking of our spiritual master, so it's the same. So diksha, it's the same root. Chakshusha, the process of initiation. Initiation is a process. It's called diksha. Diksha, it's the same root as to see. It means to actually see. The soul awakens. The soul awakens and actually sees with spiritual senses. That's the essence of the process of initiation. That's the essence of the process of diksha. That's why Prabhupada writes. He writes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur initiated Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, and Jagannath Das Babaji initiated Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, even though historically it's known between those two pairs of relationships, there was never a formal ceremony of initiation. Prabhupada's talking about the essence of the process of initiation, which is to transform that which is unmanifested to that which is manifest, And so the devotee that most directly and personally provides us that divya gyan, that transcendental knowledge, which is the essence, the driving force of the process of diksha, then that's our guru with a capital G. That's our prominent, current, and direct link to the parampara. And so our inspiration, our personal inspiration, is to support and encourage people to develop and establish their personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada in a very personal sense, such that Prabhupada is and becomes that main Vaishnav, opening their heart with transcendental knowledge, that main process providing, that main devotee providing divya gyan. And in that relationship, Prabhupada is serving the sincere disciple as their current and direct link to the parampara. This verse, text 29 of chapter 6, reads, Tataste bratara ime prajanam patayo nava ayajan vyaktam avyaktam purusham susamahita. My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, performed the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities. Hare Krishna, thank you for your attention and presence and association. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to share any comments or ask any questions. Ramachandra Prabhu.
So my question is, for someone who is engaged or someone who is engaged on the path of devotional service, which is personal, how one becomes unknowingly strained to impersonalism on that path of personalism.
How one becomes
unknowingly or out of without his intent, without intentionally drifting to impersonalism suddenly. Like your lecture, how I get it, it was all about sifting out the personalism from impersonalism. Like the whole process of acquiring knowledge is actually personal.
Very personal, yeah.
So how come everyone is impersonal? And at the same time, I wonder about myself. how easily I experience for myself is to swift from personalism to back to impersonalism.
In different subtle forms.
Yeah. So my question is how you perceive that happening in
Okay.
devotional life.
Thanks for your comment and question there. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Well, I take a lot of wisdom, in relation to that question from Srila Prabhupada's purport to Bhagavad Gita 4.10. The Sanskrit of that verse is Vitaraga Bhaya Kroda Manmaya Mamu Pashrita Bhavo Gyana Tapasa Putamad Bhavam Agata. And so Prabhupada talks about, I think, the psychology that you're asking about. That because different forms of, first of all, impersonalism is a valid philosophy, right? There is the non-personal aspect of the absolute, so that's valid. And to regard the non-personal aspect of the absolute as the supreme, or to deny the personal aspect of the absolute, there's also shunyavad, which the idea is that the ground of reality is nothing. That's not valid. But the ground of reality being spirit energy, there's validity to that. It's not the complete. But the idea is, I want to be the supreme person. I don't want to surrender. I don't, it's an insult to my material ego, this whole bhakti thing. And so I want to create clever rationalizations, maybe even within the context of what I call bhakti. I want to create some rationalizations so that I don't need to submit myself to a superior person. Because if the topmost is matter or spirit, and then the idea is I merge into spirit, it's the idea of I become God when like that. So the psychology there is that material life means Ishvaroham, Hambogi, Siddhoham, Balavansuki. I'm the controller. I'm the enjoyer. I don't want to. I don't want to submit to another person. I don't want to acknowledge that there's a person not just a little superior to me, but just like infinitely superior to me. So that really conflicts against the whole mission of the material ego. And then, we could go further into it, that because the idea of bhakti, it's about relationship. But bhakti is about relationship, cultivating my relationship, my personal, eternal relationship with God, with Krishna, through his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. And in that, cultivating my eternal relationship with other spirit souls, with Krishna in the center. So then part of the psychology there is, look, when you talk about relationship, I've suffered a lot in relationship. My heart's been hurt. I've had a lot of pain. I've experienced a lot of frustration. I've been victimized. I've been crushed in relationships so many times. And so the idea that when I achieve spiritual enlightenment and perfection, there's more relationship. Oh, I need to reject that. And then the psychology is I'll accept some non-personal philosophy. And what's missing in that conclusion is that, yes, material relationships are painful and empty and intrinsically exploitative and based on cheating. It's just a business deal. But then there's a different quality of relationship, spiritual relationship, but based on the incomplete conception of material relationships, I reject the possibility of spiritual relationships between me and the Supreme Person. So that's part of the psychology.
And I think what I heard from you that caught my attention was like lack of submissions manifesting as impersonalism.
Yes.
Lack of either relationships between devotees or relationships to God or the spiritual master.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Even Prabhupada emphasizes sometimes that in the Vedic tradition, even the demigod worshippers, which we might think, well, that's a form of personalism. Prabhupada says it's often impersonalism, because the idea is the ultimate is that it's all one and like that. And so, yeah, you can worship Kali or Indra or the Ashwini Kumars or Brahma or Shiva. I mean, if you want to worship Krishna or Vishnu, okay, but it's all one, it's all the same. There's no personal distinction. So Prabhupada points out that in the mentality of demigod worshippers, it tends to be impersonalism too. Thank you, Ramachandra. Thank you. Any other comments or questions or realizations anyone wants to ask or share? Bhakta George.
Yeah, David, I appreciate your class, and I'm wondering around the concept of diksha that you mentioned, seeing the process of like seeing with spiritual eyes. Does that process start when, as a personal acceptance of the guru in the heart, even before the formal ceremony and so forth? And can it exist and continue to grow? I guess my question is regarding the formal ceremony, how significant that is to the process of diksha and seeing.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Well, the short answer to your question is yes. Clear, definitely, unquestionable yes. Prabhupada himself, maybe you're familiar with this quote, Prabhupada himself would say, in 1922, when he first met Bhaktisiddhanta, and Prabhupada said in that first meeting he was happily defeated. Prabhupada presented some conception, and then Bhaktisiddhanta gave him Lord Chaitanya's mission, pure bhakti vision. And Prabhupada said, 1922, that was my actual initiation. And why? Because that's when he accepted, not just external, he accepted Bhaktisiddhanta's mission as his life and soul. And Prabhupada said, that was my real initiation. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, and 11 years later, 1933, then I received formal initiation. It was, formal initiation. Bhaktisiddhanta changed his name from Abhay to Bhai Charanaravinda. Same basic root and expanded. So Prabhupada said, 1933, I was formally initiated. My real initiation was 1922, when I accepted my guru's mission as my life and soul. And so that's clear response to your question, Prabhupada's own biography. And so we accept Prabhupada's mission as our life and soul, which includes following the daily sadhana he gave us and dedicating our life to please Srila Prabhupada. That is the essence of initiation. That is Diksha. That's the essence of the process of Diksha. The formal ceremony is not essential. At the same time, it is part of the process of Diksha. When I say the formal ceremony of initiation is not essential, I do not want to imply that it's not transcendental. When done with proper consciousness, when done according to Prabhupada's guidance, it's a transcendental, wonderful, transformational event. So I'm not minimizing it, and it's not essential. The essence is serving Srila Prabhupada with sincerity, and then Srila Prabhupada representing the Parampara, representing Sri Krishna, fills our heart with transcendental knowledge. That's the essence of the transformational process. And then, so like the initiation ceremony, it's not like that's when I'm linked with Prabhupada. In a sense, the initiation ceremony is kind of like, it's like a formal occasion to publicly acknowledge that I'm linked with Srila Prabhupada. And so the formal ceremony is transcendental and transformational, and at the same time, it's not an essential part of the process. And so Diksha, it's an eternal process. It's an eternal process. And so so that process of transformation, that process of well, okay, I would say, so in the early stages, and if in this lifetime I could get out of the early stages, that would be amazing. But in the early stages, Diksha is where we're transforming our heart and coming out of the modes of nature. And as we realize more and more Divya Gyan, realizing spirit soul, less and less influenced by Maya, more and more enthusiasm to serve Prabhupada, and hear and chant Srinivadam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravan Kirtana Vidyanta Stoya Bhajani Vijudani Sarit Satam. And then after one is completely, when there's no more anartas, no more unwanted things in the heart, then the process of Diksha continues. And then it's not a process of getting out of the modes of material nature. Then it's simply increasing, deepening, expanding love for Krishna through spontaneous service. As a, maybe it's a crude analogy, but as an analogy, just like, say if we put milk on the stove. So I put milk on the stove, and I might say, the milk is boiling. The milk is boiling. So boiling represents Diksha in the analogy. The milk is boiling. Now, I don't know what the temperature of milk boiling is, whatever, 230, whatever. And so, okay. So the milk is not actually bubbling. It's not actually at the boiling point. But still, it's accurate. It's boiling. It's in the process of boiling. So I might say, in one sense, I'm not at the boiling point. I'm not really initiated, right? I'm not really initiated, but maybe, but okay. I chant rounds. I'm in the process of Diksha. I'm in the process of Diksha. Maybe I've not reached the boiling point. Maybe I'm still far from the boiling point. But so I can say, yeah, I'm boiling. I'm in the process of Diksha. Okay, and then the milk reaches the boiling point, and then we might still say the milk is boiling. And then even a minute or 2 or 5 minutes after it's reached the boiling point, we can still say the milk is boiling. So when we say someone's received Diksha, there can be different stages of that, and it's an ongoing process. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhakti Jude.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, like it's a question and a comment too about this this point. I think a few days ago I sort of like acknowledged that actually, like in regards to what like we do in like personal growth processes, the formal initiation is a form of accountability check, basically, to help us to follow the essence of the process. And I guess part of the essence of the process is submission to the spiritual master. And I was wondering, like how would you describe, like in this time, place, and circumstance of like the Prabhupada is like seemingly not with us, like how do we submit to like a guru which is apparently not, just like the verse, like apparently present or not present,
Apparently unmanifest.
Unmanifest. How do we submit to that? The submission is so important to.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Well, how do we submit in serving Prabhupada? We do it exactly according to the system and structure that he set up, precisely. And so Prabhupada set up a system which was, let's say even before November 14th, 1977, which was when the day where that particular Vapu form of Srila Prabhupada became unmanifest. Okay. But even before that, if we look at his the 6,000, 10,000 disciples from before November 14th, 1977, the vast majority of them, 99.999% of the time, they were serving Prabhupada and receiving Divyagan from Prabhupada without being in his physical presence. Sure, those who were in physical presence and wrote books about it, that's wonderful, not to be minimized. But that's not even like a fraction of a percent of even before November 14th, 1977, of what Prabhupada established, what Prabhupada set up. He set up a system where we see Divya Gyan from him through his books, through his recorded lectures, through his instructions, and we get guidance through his authorized representatives. And we serve him through his authorized representatives. That's the system he set up. And that's fully available. I'm thinking in, I think it was 1969, maybe 68, he wrote to someone named Andrea Temple in the Bahamas. I think it was the Bahama Islands. I'm not sure if Andrea was a male or female, but I think she's a woman. And anyhow, and he said, it's very dark. He said, you hear the Maha Mantra from my representatives, and you're receiving it directly from me. So Prabhupada set up a system where we serve him directly. We read his books, we hear his lectures, and also we serve Prabhupada directly through serving his representatives and associating with his sincere representatives.
And what if there's a lack of representatives, or they're not available, or we have like some doubts about these representatives, because these representatives, they're not as good as Prabhupada at the same time, right?
Well, we want to get to directly know Srila Prabhupada. We want to honor Prabhupada's representatives, and according to our situation and service, serve them cooperatively with cooperation, maybe sometimes with the spirit of submission. And we don't want to be dependent on them. That's why I'm encouraging everyone, get to know Prabhupada directly. Read his books, hear his lectures. I'm going to say especially read his books, all of his books, not just once, again and again and again. Get to know Srila Prabhupada directly. Develop your direct So I so much appreciate the association of everyone here online and in person, and so many of Prabhupada's representatives and sincere devotees. I so much appreciate it. And it's enriching me, and has for 40 years since I began to take prasad and hear some kirtan. And I want to cultivate a consciousness where I'm not dependent on where I'm only dependent on Srila Prabhupada and chanting Hare Krishna. And even chanting Hare Krishna, I get that through Srila Prabhupada. We can take Prabhupada's example. Prabhupada was in physical Vapu association with thousands of residents of Vrindavan in the early and mid-60s. And he left it. He left it because he was only dependent on his spiritual master's association. And so he sailed on the Jaladuta. He came to where there were no devotees. But no, Prabhupada wasn't saying there's no devotees in Butler, Pennsylvania, or New York, or Florida, or Europe. He was saying everyone in New York's a devotee. They're just unmanifest. They're just unmanifest. So you can see Prabhupada's only dependency was on serving Bhakti Siddhanta. So we want to appreciate, we want to create association, we want to create communities of association, sure, like that. And to not be dependent on it, to only be dependent on Prabhupada's association, which is not dependent on anything physical. Prabhupada's association and chanting Hare Krishna. And so, and other association, we appreciate it, we're enriched by it, we give and receive. And we want to cultivate a consciousness where we're not dependent on it for our spiritual life or emotional life.
So, as I understand, our connection with Prabhupada doesn't depend on something like getting in touch with one of his physical representatives.
We want to come to a point where it doesn't depend on that, correct? If my connection with Prabhupada does depend on that, then that indicates a further direction for my growth. Philosophically, it doesn't depend on it. Philosophically, it doesn't depend on it. Now, we want to know ourselves. We want to meet ourselves where I'm at. And if where I'm at is I'm really not that weak, I'm pretty weak. I'm not that strong in my personal connection with Srila Prabhupada. Then let me be responsible to get the physical association I need, whether it's physical through Zoom or in. Let me be responsible to get the association I need to maintain and deepen and expand my enthusiasm to serve Prabhupada. And definitely, we want to come to the point where we're not dependent on any, on any physical association. We're only dependent on serving Srila Prabhupada with joy and enthusiasm. We want to come to that point. That is security. That is security.
Good morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm really appreciating your sharing this personal relationship with Prabhupada. I feel like preparing for my initiation, that's my biggest goal, is to really relish the relationship. And last weekend there was a women retreat for Bhakteens, and it was on Facebook, and I was really appreciating a lot of the first disciples of Prabhupada when they talked about reading Chaitanya Charita, how much it brought them to tears. Like there was so much beauty and personal relationship in reading, and because Prabhupada's not in his body anymore, that's how they associate with Prabhupada. And so I was really getting a lot of reassurances, like confirmation that just by reading that relationship can become stronger and even more personal each time you go back to the scriptures. So really appreciate those ladies and their sharing and their devotion, and that it's not dependent, as you're saying, on association or on any physical manifestation. It's a personal relationship, and how you want to create that relationship is on the individual. And so I really, cherished hearing from other ladies on how they develop their relationship with Prabhupada. So I'm endeavoring, I'm endeavoring. So thank you for sharing this morning. I really enjoyed class.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhakti Nan. Beautiful sharing. I appreciate your sharing very much. And just a simple point, which maybe it's common sense, but I'm getting many people miss it a lot of the time. Spiritual relationship is not dependent on anything material. It's just like, that should be obvious. I mean, actual spiritual relationship, like with the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada, spiritual relationship, it's not dependent on geography. It's like, well, you can only have a spiritual relationship if you're both in the same room physically. And that should be an obvious contradiction, right? Spiritual relationship, Divya Gyan, Vani, transcendental knowledge is just not dependent on presence on the same planet, not dependent on presence in a physical body, on presence in the same room, the same stadium, the same universe. By definition, spirit is transcendent to matter. Now, we don't want to do a spiritual bypass. And if for me to remain enthusiastic, I need the sort of physical association we're having right now. And that's why you see like myself and Marie, that's why we've organized thousands of these programs over the years, because we know the importance of let's call it physical association. We know the importance. At the same time, we should get that essentially, ultimately, spiritual relationship is not dependent on anything physical. Okay, and simultaneously, let's know ourselves and create the association that will support us to maintain and progress. Thank you, Anne. I like your sharing. Bhakteen Brielle.
Why is it that association with a pure devotee, in the person form, is considered material, but reading a book is not considered material?
Okay, thanks for your question. Association with a pure devotee in the physical form, it's not considered material. It's spiritual. I might relate to it materially, just like there are examples, unfortunately, but there are examples where those who had a lot of physical association with Srila Prabhupada and they became overly familiar. So they related to the spiritual association in a material way. And so we want to look at how ready are we to receive that that spiritual association. And then the danger is, and I've spoken for myself, because sometimes I've been asked, I remember in October 2017 at Ananda Dham, beautiful community in the mountains of Switzerland near Italy. And they asked me to speak a lot about Srila Prabhupada. And at one point they said, well, Srila Prabhupada's your guru, and I imagine that, you feel a lot of sadness that, you didn't get to like personally associate with him physically. And I thought about it, but not for long. I thought about it for about half a second. I said, no, not at all. I'm knowing myself, if I had that form of Vapu association with Prabhupada, I imagine I would have committed offenses. That I'm sure of it. I would have committed offenses. So like that would have hampered my spiritual life. So the Vapu in the form of like that form of physical presence, also Prabhupada in the Murti form, that's also a form of Vapu. And there's Vani in the form of books and recorded lectures. It's all one. It's all spiritual, completely spiritual. And also there's distinctions. There's distinctions in spiritual life. So with all of the association, we want to be conscious how to associate. We want to be conscious how to associate. So the Vapu in the form of like Prabhupada's presence before November 14th, 1977, that is a beautiful spiritual form, completely transcendental form. There's nothing material about it. And at the same time, it's possible to relate, to associate with that sort of form in a way that can do harm, a way that can do harm to our spiritual life, like that.
Yes, thank you. And I guess I'm asking because when I was associating with these Gaudiya Mat Sangha in Vrindavan, they would say that the only way you can hear of course this is probably not what Prabhupada gave, but the only way you can hear your knowledge of your Swarup is through from the lips of a pure devotee in the ear, like audible, which is exactly what you're saying is material. But then I'm looking at okay, but what about reading a book? Reading a book is material too. It's if we can call that material, then why don't we also call reading a book material?
But I'm not calling Prabhupada's lips material. Prabhupada's lips are completely spiritual. Prabhupada's lips and lungs are completely spiritual. So I'm not calling that material. Now, if someone's saying, okay, and I don't know about your, Sangha, that ashram, wherever, but okay, here's the philosophy I've sometimes seen, and it's completely backwards. The idea is Prabhupada's pure Vani, that's not available anymore. In essence, that's material. They might not say that. So to really advance spiritually, to really get your Siddha Pranali, you need to hear from my lips and the air coming from my lungs. So basically, my material lungs and mouth, that's what you need to hear from to advance spiritually. And then it gets into questions like, well, what if we're too far away from each other and I have laryngitis that day, that if I use a megaphone, is the spiritual potency there? We get into all these completely ridiculous contradictions. So that's what I've heard many essentially say. I mean, I'm deconstructing it in my juvenile way, but that's essentially what they're saying. Srila Prabhupada's eternally potent Vani, that's material, but to really advance and know your Siddha Pranali, you need to hear personally in the same room from my material. So I'm confusing matter and spirit. That's Sahaja, that's Mayavad. I'm thinking my material lips and lungs are spiritual, and Prabhupada's spiritual Vani is material. It's completely confused. But yeah, if someone, before November 14th, 1977 heard and saw Prabhupada's lips, whether he was talking about Krishna and the gopis or talking about bookkeeping, that's completely spiritual. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
comes to me around that too is that understanding our Svarup, the spiritual master is not telling us our Svarup. We already know that Svarup. There's no need for him to tell that, and it's something that, considering the 9th or 8th stages starting from Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Nishta, Ashakti, Ruchi, and Bhav, and ultimately Prema, we reach that connection already beyond our connection with Prabhupada, in a sense, after Nishta, which is re-establishment of our relationship with Krishna, like the Brijabasis, right? So we already know no one needs to tell us our Svarup. It's like, I met this, I didn't meet her, but my dad told me about this one girl from his army that she got a Siddha Svarup initiation, and she was wandering naked on 4 in India and thinking she is a cow. It's like, it's a true story. But yeah, I really appreciated your point. It's not material, meaning that it's already there. No need to broadcast.
Yeah, so Prabhupada, encourages us to dutifully and enthusiastically perform our sadhana. And then as far as, that after the stage of all the contamination, and I guess all the contamination of the heart is gone, then just like the sun rises in its own time, then things like that rasa, the Siddha Pranali get revealed. As far as a separate initiation for Siddha Pranali, we follow our current link, and Prabhupada, he just didn't talk about it. He didn't give it. He didn't recommend it. So that's there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.